What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. We have a few interesting curveballs and some unexpected news from a couple different sources, which is going to be interesting to talk about here. Also, it's the New York Auto Show this week, so lots of debuts there I'll be covering as well. But before I get into the news here this week, I first want to mention I will be doing another live stream here. This time it'll be on Saturday since Sunday is Easter. So I'll be doing it on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time here. And so join if you can. It's always a fun time here at these weekly live streams we've been doing. I also want to mention that I am having a discount on my merch store this week, and actually goes till April 17th. Thanks to Spring, they're doing the discount, and so it's 25% off of all the merch. So you can just check out the little merch shelf there below the video and check out the store, and you get 25% off one order when you use the code FriendsAndFans25. So check that out if you want. But anyway, getting into the news here this week. First off, like I said, the most interesting thing here, as you see from the headline, is some interesting news about Dodge potentially going back to gas for the new Charger that is coming. So this is interesting stuff. It popped up on a Reddit post that apparently there was a dealer meeting in Vegas recently for Dodge dealers, and so there was some info that was shared with them confidentially, and so this Reddit post detailed all the different things that they talked about as far as future products, and then the post was taken down. But before the post was taken down, Mopar Insiders and a few others grabbed some info here from the post. And so the fact that it was removed makes me think it's a little more legit. But again, take all this with a grain of salt for sure. But a lot of these things make a lot of sense. And so anyway, the first thing here is that about the Charger, potentially good news here. So they're supposedly the executives confirmed that first off, the Charger will be available in both a two-door and a four-door. So the two-door electric concept we saw, we're kind of wondering, what's going to happen with the four-door Charger, since that's what it's typically been as far as recent history has gone. And so supposedly it's just going to be offered in a two-door and a four-door. Makes sense, sounds good, and especially being electric, having the Charger for both, I think, is, the better name. So that's cool. And so on top of that, though, what the real curveball was is supposedly the executives did confirm that there will also be standard and high output versions of the Hurricane inline twin turbo 6 that's going to be available as well for the Charger. Now, this is the real curveball. So there have been rumors in the past that the Challenger would come back and also get this power plant. Supposedly, sadly, there wasn't any mention that I saw of the Challenger returning. So the Challenger truly might actually be on its way out. But, all this talk about this is the end of, gas-powered stuff, and definitely the end of the Hemi. Dodge has been a little coy about the gas stuff, but supposedly they're claiming here, according to the dealer conference, that they will be offering that engine here in this new thing as well. And so this isn't a completely out of left field, though, because myself and many other journalists were on a conference call with Dodge's CEO just a few months ago, and someone asked about, what about, having any kind of gas for, because they were talking about the electric Charger, and the CEO seemed almost annoyed that people were talking or trying to talk about a gas version, and he said that the STLA large platform that this vehicle will be on can support gas powertrains if they so choose, but he made it seem like they have no plans for gas, like they're focusing on the electric. That's the thing, is it's electric, like get off the gas thing, guys. It was kind of the consensus. So from that, all of us took that to be like a pretty firm denial that no, yes, it is technically possible, but that's not what we're doing. So either they have planned this all along and they were just, playing games and, but Dodge's CEO is usually pretty blunt and open, for the most part, as much as he can be. So I'm inclined to believe that maybe plans have changed. Maybe they had a lot of blowback or more, than they were thinking they would, for the electric thing. And so maybe they are going to offer people the choice. And whether that comes, again, these products, by the way, they're talking about for the next 7 years. So whether that comes at launch, or whether this is something that comes later on down the road, because that's something that Dodge CEO did admit, is that they could add it later on potentially if they felt there was a desire for it. So maybe this isn't coming, like this year at launch or something. There's all kinds of conflicting reports, but anyway, the consensus is that, a gas-powered Charger may actually be coming back, and it isn't truly the end. So this also could be something they, tried to play up to make it more dramatic for, being like, oh, we're going to fully electric. Like, this is truly the end of these current generation Charger and Challenger, to build some extra hype there. And also, it softens the blow of the V8 going away if, everyone's like, oh man, we're going to be stuck with electric. And they're like, but wait, we actually have an inline twin turbo 6 here that's awesome and more powerful than the V8s were, as like a nice consolation prize. And then that that will, I think that would make the reception of the inline six versions of those a lot warmer. And Motor Trend did previously say that there would be some type of new Hellcat that would have the inline six, but then also have electric, combination there for some type of 700 horsepower thing that makes 500 maybe from the gas motor and 200 from an electric, and you have the same output as a Hellcat with less emissions. So there have been some rumors and some reports about this stuff in the past. So where there's smoke, there's typically fire. Hopefully, this isn't all just wishful thinking and people drumming up rumors that are, things that people want to read. We'll have to see, but I'm inclined to think that they may have something up their sleeve here. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, moving on from the whole Charger thing here. Also at the dealer conference, there's some other interesting info, like the confirmation that Ram will make an electric midsize truck that's supposedly inspired by the Ram Revolution concept, the actual crazy looking one, not the production version that was watered down. And I have more info on that here later in the video. So beyond that, though, they also at this dealer conference supposedly claimed that the Durango name will be getting repurposed for a full-size SUV that'll be based on the Wagoneer platform to compete more directly with the Tahoe and the Expedition. That also makes a bunch of sense. We've heard that kind of rumor in the past, so that is something that would fit in my mind. And then lastly, to fill the gap in the mid-size three-row SUV segment that the Durango would then vacate by going full-size. Now, the Reddit post claims, and this is the real curveball, that Dodge is bringing back the Stealth name for a three-row SUV, and that'll be radically different as far as styling. It'll be more sporty, sleeker, and not quite as boxy as the current Durango, and that it would use the Stealth name. And I don't know. I mean, Dodge has plenty of, cool names from their past and names they've played with for concept cars and stuff that I think would fit better than Stealth. But that's supposedly the name they're going with. Again, we will see if that turns out to be true. But anyway, very interesting to hear all that. Again, once again, take all this stuff with a grain of salt, but seems to make some sense, and I'm inclined to believe this is fairly legit. So interesting to hear that. But now, on to the New York Auto Show here this week. So Subaru has debuted the 2024 Crosstrek Wilderness. And so it gives the new Crosstrek the Wilderness treatment here for the first time, which includes 0.6 inches of extra ground clearance for 9.3 inches total now, along with new springs and dampers with unique tuning, unique 17-inch wheels on Yokohama Geolandar tires, and a shorter final drive ratio paired with unique CVT tuning. So again, all the same stuff that they gave to every, the Forester and the Outback as well. But sadly, like the Forester gets, it only is the same naturally aspirated 2.5 liter Boxer 4 as the regular Crosstrek there, but like in the Forester, that final drive should make it a little stronger feeling off the line, but it would have been nice to get the turbo motor like the Outback gets. I'm pretty sure that the turbo motor should fit, because I believe it's roughly the same engine bay as the WRX still, but unfortunately we're still stuck with it being slow. But one spec that did get an improvement here though is the tow rating, which now is 3,500 pounds, and even Subaru executives said they thought that was a typo when they originally saw that from the engineers, but no, it's apparently way more than the 1,500 pounds of the original tow rating on the Crosstrek. So that is impressive. I guess they just really beefed up with that final drive or something. I have no clue how they're doing that. But anyway, what may or may not be impressive, depending on your opinion on it, is the styling though. So let me know what you think about it in the comments below. It's similar to other Wilderness trims, but they even took this one a little further, this time with even more cladding, a bolder grille here, and even giant Subaru lettering taking up basically the entire rear bumper, which is really a bold move. I don't know. I just think that's like them trying to do like the Raptor thing on the grille, except on the back bumper. I feel like they could have made it a little smaller. That's like beach towel sized lettering, and it's just like a little much, I think. But they're really going for it here, and so I guess I gotta commend their boldness. And so I just still think though it's only a matter of time before Subaru just gets rid of paint altogether and just makes the entire thing cladding, because they'll say it's more durable, and maybe they'll bring back the vinyl tops as well and just have that be more rugged. And it's just kind of interesting that this thing has so much cladding. I think it probably takes the award for most cladding on a vehicle. And so anyway, one good thing though is the pricing. These are really reasonably priced, starting at $33,290 including destination, and they should arrive fairly soon. And there's only like one package for like $2,500 or so to give you like a sunroof and an upgraded stereo and a couple other things. But I mean, you know, essentially they'll be maxed out at like 35 grand. And yes, it's a subcompact crossover, but you know, I think part of the advantage of not having very much power is, you know, you have it come in a lot cheaper than stuff like the, you know, Bronco Badlands or this Bronco Sport Badlands, I mean, and, you know, some of those other things that kind of compete. So anyway, nice that they kept it, you know, pretty affordable there. And so interesting to see that. Another off-road ready vehicle that was teased this week that's coming very soon is the 2024 Toyota Tacoma. And so we got an official teaser here for the first time, and it's really informative, as you can see there. So not only is it confirmed that we are getting the TRD Pro version right at the launch here, but also that this truck is running an iForce Max powertrain, which is a real curveball because, you know, TFL truck, which usually has, you know, really good sources. I mean, their sources could still be accurate, but they said that it's going to be getting the 2.4 turbo 4-cylinder and then the hybrid Max version of that. And so that made a lot of sense because in everything else, Toyota's swapping the V6 for the 2.4 liter turbo 4 in their lineup. And so that made a total sense. You know, get rid of it in the Tacoma and put in the 2.4. And then the hybrid Max thing was a nice extra cherry on top, you know, to give you extra power for those who want something even higher performing than a typical Tacoma. And that made total sense, and I was fully expecting that. But with the iForce Max badge on the back, that badge is reserved right now, at least, for the Tundra and the Sequoia, which means you get a twin-turbo V6 with 437 horsepower and a wild 583 pound-feet of torque. And even in a Sequoia, that motor flies. It's honestly, in my opinion, the fastest feeling thing in that massive, like, full-size SUV segment, honestly. And so if they put that in the smaller Tacoma, that would easily make it like the Raptor R of the midsize truck segment. It'd be like the TRX of the midsize segment. I mean, that would be wild. I really, really hope that's what they're planning here. The, you know, more pessimistic side of me thinks they'll probably turn down the motor, even if they do include that motor. But man, would I love to see that full tune in the Tacoma. That would be hilarious fun, I'm sure. And honestly, it would really stand out. And if it's on the part shelf and they can make that motor fit in the Tacoma, I say go for it. You know, even if it's a bunch of money or something, just offer it. That would be super cool. It's also possible, though, that they're just going to expand the branding for that iForce Max and that will mean various things here in the future and that, you know, maybe it could still be the same motor, but just, again, less power, or that they, you know, use the iForce Max branding on the hybrid Max powertrain, but since it's on a truck, they, you know, found some way to justify, you know, calling it the iForce Max. I don't know, but yeah, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for the hot rod treatment. That would be a lot of fun. So we'll have to wait and see. But the only thing Toyota's very short press release said was that this truck's going to have electrifying iForce Max performance. So obviously the iForce Max thing is electrified in whichever, you know, form it comes in, whether it's the hybrid Max or the iForce Max, you know, set up currently. But yeah, so otherwise, you know, what we can see is that it's going to have looks inspired by the Tundra. We already saw some leaked patent images, which probably give away most of it. But, you know, it's going to basically have the same kind of tailgate design as the Tundra, same kind of taillights, just a little smaller there. And, you know, should be really nice looking. So anyway, but very interesting to hear that, and I'm guessing there's going to be more teasers here leading up to the reveal whenever that happens. But yeah, very, very excited to see more teasers and you know, see how this onion kind of unravels. And for some other off-roader news here, Jeep has revealed the refresh for the 2024 Wrangler here at the New York Auto Show. So on the outside, all that's changed is the grille and the antenna, but it's notable here that the grille, you know, kind of has a little more curvature than it's ever had before. And the antenna is actually gone now and replaced with a more modern one built into the windshield. But I mean, that stick-up, you know, antenna was one of the staples of Wranglers for a long time, and you know, pretty interesting. They have finally done away with that. On the inside here, it gets a redesigned dash, which is really well done. Has a standard 12.3-inch touchscreen now with wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and again, that is standard. Typically, you had to, you know, pay to upgrade screens in Wranglers, but now even a base Wrangler gets this big, huge screen. It runs the new Uconnect 5 software, and you can see there's now a slim vent underneath that replaces the old round air vents that were sacrificed to make room for the big screen there. There's also a grab handle on the passenger side now, and the dash is hand wrapped with, you know, that vinyl or leather kind of material there. Other nice touches are more speakers, microphones, and better sound dampening thanks to more foam, acoustic glass, and thicker carpeting. So hopefully phone calls will actually be more doable in a Wrangler now, and just a little bit of a more refined experience. They also finally added side curtain airbags, so you should actually have a little bit better safety now finally, although it still won't be great. They don't do well in crash tests, but at least as far as side impact stuff goes, you'll be a little bit better protected. And then powertrains are all carry over here, so nothing different there, but you can now get a power box, they're calling it, on the 4xe, which gives you 420 volt outlets, and so similar to other electrified vehicles, just giving you some outlets there. There's also a new Dana 44 rear axle that's now full float to allow bigger wheels and tires and improve towing capacity to 5,000 pounds on the Rubicons with the automatic. Lastly, there's two new trims, a cheaper Sport S trim for the 4xe version, because apparently there was a lot of demand for cheaper 4xes, which, by the way, the 4xe is the top selling plug-in hybrid in America, which I'm kind of surprised, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but pretty impressive that they're, one, able to supply that many of them, and two, that there's a lot of demand for those, even though it is a good price increase over a regular Wrangler. That's what really surprised me, is people are paying that extra money for the 4xe, which is impressive. So they're doing a Sport S trim to even increase those volumes even more. And then there's also a Rubicon X trim now that's been added that gives you 35-inch tires, beadlock capable wheels, steel bumpers, and a full-time transfer case. And so there's no pricing or release date yet for those, but they're already available to order. I'm guessing you can place an order here, and they should be arriving relatively soon. So hopefully we will get pricing pretty soon. I'm surprised we don't have it yet. But anyway, moving on here, Ram has also provided more specs for the production version of the 1500 Rev here, and it's pretty impressive in most ways. So first, the highlights are that they'll all get 654 horsepower and 620 pound-feet of torque, a 4.4 second 0 to 60 time, and it can do up to 500 miles of range thanks to a massive 229 kilowatt hour battery. 229 kilowatt hours. That's basically the same as the Hummer EV, so expect them to be able to produce these about as quickly as they're producing Hummer EVs, which means very slowly, because that many materials for those batteries, it's going to be hard to get. I don't know how they expect to build these things in any kind of reasonable volume, but they're not just making loaded trucks here. They said there's going to be, like the cheap trims, there's going to be like a tradesman version and stuff like that. And so I have no clue. I mean, that's way bigger than what, the Chevy and the Ford offer. And so, it's good from a range standpoint, but man, that means this thing's probably going to also be nearly 9,000 pounds like the Hummer. And I just feel like we're getting a little out of control. I get that people want a lot of range and you need that for towing and stuff, but this just seems a little much. In the Hummer, it's kind of comical and it's just kind of overkill because Hummers have always been overkill. But for, more practical Ram, I don't know how I feel about, having a battery that big. But if you don't want a battery that big, it is going to be also offering a 168 kilowatt hour battery that can still do a very strong 350 miles of range. Thankfully, though, all these batteries use an 800 volt system that does 350 kilowatt fast charging. So hopefully recharge times will be, pretty similar to like the Hummer EV and be, still pretty impressive. It also can do the bidirectional thing here for, powering other devices, and has several outlets all over, including a 240 volt outlet in the bed as well. There's also going to be a few other little things, like it's got a 2,700 payload rating and also a 14,000 pound tow rating. So, pretty impressive specs there. They also all have an independent air suspension, which is kind of surprising considering they offer some cheaper trims here. So even like, they're going to be starting with a tradesman. Even a tradesman gets an independent air suspension, which will be, a nice upgrade over, a much simpler tradesman version of a regular Ram. There's also going to be Bighorn, Laramie, and Limited trims, along with a new tungsten trim as the top level. Inside, they're basically the same as a regular Ram, other than the digital gauges and the available passenger display. And they'll also be able to do hands-free driving assist, at least as an option. And we still don't have any pricing for these yet, but they are 2025 model year vehicles, with initial availability not until the fourth quarter of 2024. So it's still going to be a ways off here. I'm still, a little disappointed in this Ram, just because it's basically just copying the same formula as the Lightning, and the Lightning's already been around for a while. This just seems like it's a little too little, too late kind of thing. And, Chevy and GMC are actually coming out with their radical trucks with the radical things like, the huge frunk and having, the drop down, mid-gate thing and, more extreme things. It just seems like Chevy's the one doing the actual next generation electric truck. And, Ram had the awesome concept, but then it just got watered down to basically, taking headlights and taillights inspired by that concept and everything else basically just being a regular Ram. So, I guess Ram's designer said that, they don't need it to scream EV, but then it's like, well, then why'd you do the concept if, that screams EV, but then you're like, oh, actually, we're going conservative for the actual production version. Just still seems like a weird kind of bait and switch thing, getting everyone excited and then letting us down with, the actual production version. They should have done the concept like after this came out and been like, hey, look, this is what we might be doing for a next generation version. And I just think they got the order wrong for the reveal for those. But anyway, interesting to at least get those specs there. And of course, they're available to pre-order or whatever if you want, and stay in the line, for the next year and a half. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Kia also gave us some specs here for the US version of the EV9 here this week. So I just covered last week the European specs for the EV9. I'm not going to rehash all that here. You can go watch last week's video. I'll have a link at the end of this video if you want to hear all the specs for the EV9. But they're mostly the same as the European version. But there are a few notable changes here for the US version. So thankfully, Kia isn't trying the subscription thing that they are trying in Europe. So all the top versions will get the 516 pound-feet of torque. There was an extra cost download in Europe. So that means here in the States, we all get the 5 seconds 0 to 60 time for those top trims and 5,000 pounds of towing. We'll get the same 99.8 kilowatt hour battery, and Kia did reveal that they're targeting 300 miles of range under EPA testing, but only the long range base model will be able to do that, much like how they've set up with the Ioniq 6 and things like that. So that one will be rear-wheel drive and only have 215 horsepower, just like in Europe. So we will be getting a slow EV9, but again, that's going to be the range king if you don't care about the speed. There's also going to be a 76.1 kilowatt hour battery available on the base model as well. The 10% to 80% charge takes less than 25 minutes, which I'm assuming is for the bigger battery, since an EV6 I think has a bigger battery than 76 kilowatt hours, and that does that same charge in 18 minutes. So I'm guessing the 25-minute quote is for that big, battery, which is still, for a 100 kilowatt hour battery to do 25 minutes recharging is, very impressive there. And so one other thing here is the US won't be getting the level 3 autonomous stuff that Europe's getting, but interestingly, the US version will still get LiDAR sensors and other sensors to make conditional level 3 autonomy possible. So I guess, they might add it as an update for future use potentially, or something that down the road they'll add on. I don't know. But for now, it'll just be used for the next generation of highway drive assist, which they're calling advanced highway drive assist this time. And they say this will keep the car centered in the lane better, which is something in my experience it definitely needs. I know a lot of people love highway drive assist, but it's been pretty underwhelming with all the vehicles I've tested it in pretty consistently. And so hopefully this will be really a nice improvement and make it one of the top systems, especially having that LiDAR is great. It'll also still get the ability to park the car with a key fob, so that's a thing that's carrying over from Europe. And it's also going to be debuting Kia's next generation operating system that they say can get over-the-air updates, does intelligent route planning and other things. There's no mention of whether or not it finally gets wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, but being the next generation version, I would sure hope so, because if they don't include it in this one either, then it's like they're consciously just not adding it, and it's not a supplier issue or something. So we'll have to see, but hopefully, ditching those old screens will allow them to now finally have the wireless thing. We'll have to see. They'll begin arriving in the fourth quarter of this year, and while those early ones will be built in Korea, they plan to build them in Georgia in 2024 to hopefully make them eligible for some tax credits here. But pricing still hasn't been revealed. I believe the leaked pricing from a survey suggested it could be about 70 grand for a fully loaded EV9. So be prepared for it to be a good bit more expensive than a Telluride, which certainly makes sense with the electric thing always being more expensive. But anyway, very interesting to hear that. And continuing with the specs theme here, we also have the US specs for the new 2024 Hyundai Kona this week. And so, as we thought, it's going to be basically all carryover for the gas powertrains, other than the N version, which they confirmed sadly is absent here for this new generation, at least for now. Also unfortunate, though, is that we won't be getting the hybrid version that Europe gets, even though Hyundai's hybrids are very popular, as are the competitors' hybrids. So this seems like a real missed opportunity. But Autoblog actually asked Hyundai about this, and Hyundai told them that it's because they want their green shoppers to go for the EV version, but that's going to be a tough sell. So they revealed the US details for that electric version as well, and it still uses the old 400 volt architecture, just like we thought. And so it's going to have a slow 43-minute 10 to 80% charge time, and the battery is almost the same size as before. It's 64.8 kilowatt hours now, and a max range of just 260 miles, which is 2 miles better than the old version. And there's also, for the first time, going to be a smaller 48.6 kilowatt hour battery available as well, and that one does just 190 197 miles of range. They're still all front-wheel drive only, and sadly, they lose a lot of torque as well. They drop by 103 pound-feet of torque to be exact, now doing 201 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque. The smaller battery is even slower though, with the same torque, but only 133 horsepower, which is actually less horsepower than the base gas engine. So clearly the EV version, even the slower version, is not going to be cheaper than the base gas version. So you're going to be paying more for less power, slow recharge times, less range than the gas version. Obviously, it's going to work for some people that want a small, low range thing, but it's not competitive. And it's just kind of bizarre that they're trying to, justify this as a good alternative to the hybrid. Like, no, it's not a good alternative to the hybrid. Sorry, especially with all the other impressive stuff that Hyundai has, this is not going to be a cheap thing for the EV versions. And so, yes, you'll probably have to pay, a few grand more for an Ioniq 5, but you'd be much better off doing that with a way faster charging, more power, more space. I don't know. It's just bizarre that they're thinking this is an actual good alternative. It's also weird because they actually said that they engineered this generation Kona with the electric one as the priority. But I don't buy that, because if it was truly the priority, you'd put the 800 volt system in, or just copy and paste everything from the Ioniq 5 and find a way to fit that in this. And instead, it just seems like they phoned it in with keeping the 400 volt thing and just making it not competitive. I don't know. Just to me, it just seems kind of weird they would say this is the priority with development and then it'd be so underwhelming still. But one thing that is a nice upgrade though is you get 5.7 inches of extra length here, so you get a more usable back seat now and usable cargo area, which were the definite weak spots of the current generation Kona. And there's also more storage space on the inside because they got rid of the shifter and put it on the column, like other Hyundais are doing. You also get the dual 12.3 inch displays there, and it's also running that next generation software like the EV9, so hopefully this one also gets wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, but again, no word on that for the Kona yet as well. There's no pricing for these either, but we should get them pretty soon, since Hyundai says the gas ones will be arriving this summer and the electric one will follow in late fall. So yeah, I think the styling looks great. I think the gas versions are going to be great. They're going to be super hot sellers, I'm sure, but the electric one, I still can't help but think it's just going to just be the lame duck that no one really wants, unfortunately. We'll see what happens, but that's just my take on it. Let me know if you have any different thoughts there in the comments below. A Hyundai Group vehicle that does look great and should drive great with a great powertrain is the Genesis GV80, the Coupe concept that they debuted here this week. So I usually don't like Coupe SUVs, but this one looks awesome in my opinion. Let me know again what you think about that in the comments below. But thankfully this is a concept that will actually get built. We'll see if it gets that sportier front end that carries over or not from this concept, because you can see there's a sportier bumper, sportier grille, the lights are even a little bit slimmer, and that double full width LED strip there in the back is a really nice look here. They integrated from those Genesis X concepts. We'll also have to see if we get the chassis brace, the sportier seats, the unique upholstery, or that 4-seat setup. I don't know if all that stuff's going to stick around or not. Again, those could be the things they do for the concept, and we'll see, a normal GV80 interior. And, I'm inclined to think that at least the exterior stuff is going to stick around as is. Genesis is really good about sticking to their concepts for the most part from a styling standpoint. So I'm optimistic about that, but yeah, if it looks like that, I think it's going to sell really, really well. It's going to definitely be a little more expensive if they're going for the sportier thing with this and, making it like the premium option like all the German competitors do. But yeah, no word on when we can expect a production version, but I think that looks awesome. And so another well done design here from Genesis. Volkswagen this week is joining the rugged looking 3-row crossover segment. Not actually more rugged really, but it's the 2024 Atlas Peak Edition. So it offers unique bumpers and rocker moldings with extra cladding, blacked out trim, unique wheels with all-terrain tires. So there is, a little bit of extra capability there. But, probably not going to be super aggressive all-terrain tires, probably more like the watered down stuff you see on all these other, ruggified, 3-row crossovers that are coming to be more and more popular here. But there's also unique trim on the interior and 2 exclusive colors, and it'll launch here this summer. So cool to see that. Mercedes didn't attend the auto show, but they did have a new reveal this week of the refreshed GLS. And so they get larger grills, which I'm not sure if that's an improvement from the looks department, but I guess they got to feel like they got to compete with the BMWs. So they made the grills larger. It's also got some sportier bumpers, new lights, and colors on the outside are a little bit different as well. Inside, they get the new Mercedes steering wheels, the new infotainment software, along with a few new color options on the inside and some new packaging packaging options and things like that. And so there's no price changes revealed yet for those, but those will be arriving later this year, of course, as well. And if you love supercars, and I've saved the best new debut here for last, and that is that Gordon Murray Automotive has revealed a Spider version of their smaller T.33 supercar that debuted last year. So the styling is actually different from the Coupe, from the A-pillar all the way back, and I mean, man, it looks really good to me. They said they focus on aerodynamics without resorting to the ostentatious ducts, skirts, and splitters that are typically used in other supercars. I love the dig at Lamborghini there. That's really great. Also very lovable is the naturally aspirated 3.9 liter V12 engine built by Cosworth that does 607 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. That might not sound like a lot of power, but the car only weighs about 2,440 pounds, which is about 40 more than the Coupe. But basically, imagine a Miata, because this is as light as a Miata. Imagine a Miata with a mid-engine V12. And that gives you a basis of what to expect with the driving experience for this thing. Like, man, oh man. And on top of that, this thing revs to 11,100 RPM, and it still runs through a 6-speed manual transmission. So it's like basically automotive perfection in my opinion. And now with the Spider version, you get to take the roof off and hear that wonderful sound with no roof. So that one has been added to my dream car wish list. And yeah, that roof, by the way, if you're curious, it stores in the front, so it comes apart nicely and shouldn't be too hard to enjoy that top-off experience. And like the Coupe, only 100 of these will be built, but thankfully they are legal here in the U.S. like the Coupe. The T.33, they've actually legalized. The T.50, I don't believe they've done that, which is the more extreme, higher-performing thing, but the T.33, they have gone through the U.S. legalization process, which is great, and that is going to be awesome for those who can afford it. It's going to cost $2.3 million, which I think is about $500,000 more than the hardtop. When you're talking about this kind of crazy money, sure, spend another $500,000 just to have the roof off. I would if I had the money. It sounds amazing, and yes, so who knows if we'll ever even see any of these things on the streets, but very, very awesome to see that. Now, the last news story here, though, is a bit sad, and that is that the last S550 generation Mustang has rolled off the line in Flat Rock, Michigan this week, and so it's just a white EcoBoost, and yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, obviously this isn't anything you didn't expect. They're ramping up and getting ready for the 2024 Mustangs, but just sad that it's the end of an era and a generation, and the last of the Mustangs that don't have enormous screens all over the place. But what a run it's been. I've obviously been very fortunate to own 4 different S550 Mustangs over the past basically 9 years now. Yeah, it's just been a ton of fun. It's a great car, and sad to see that they've ended production of that generation. It's just, obviously, I still love my Bullet. They're fantastic cars. All the S550 Mustangs are fantastic in their own ways. And so anyway, sad to see that has gone away. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have several new members join this week, largely thanks to those very generous membership gifts that were given out in the live streams there this past week. So huge thanks to those of you that gifted the memberships. I really appreciate that. But I also did want to thank specifically Anis and S. Alvanip for both becoming members this week as well, independent of the gifting thing. So thank you both for your support as well. And congrats to those of you who got the gifted memberships as well. I hope you'll consider sticking around after that gifting period is over, but I want to congratulate them as well. So congrats to Dylan Chalmers WX, Vitor Mikado, Goth Rocker 7, Jay Lorenz, Calm with Peace, Jason Martineau, Jajuk, I don't know how to say the last part there, James Cardillo, Mike, and Marcus Danielson. So I hope you're all enjoying the membership perks here, and again, I look forward to chatting with you here on Saturday if you can make it, and thank you very much once again for the support. Hopefully you're enjoying all those membership perks as well. But anyway, that's it as far as all of the news this week, guys, so thank you all very much for watching. Please also leave a like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.